All right, so when you think about the EU's biggest wins, maybe the euro springs to mind, or, getting rid of borders with Schengen.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are huge, massive policy things. Definitely.
But today we're diving into something different, something maybe more personal, more social, and, well, arguably it's having a really profound effect on shaping Europe's future identity. We're talking about the Erasmus program.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because what started out as, well, a pretty modest student exchange idea has just ballooned. It's huge now.
So we're talking Erasmus plus that's the current name for it.
That's right. It bundles together schemes for education, training, youth, even sport now. And get this, since it kicked off back in 1987, it's had over 13 million participants.
Wow, 13 million.
Oh,
That's an incredible number. It's like this massive engine for moving people across borders.
exactly. A scale unlike pretty much anything else the EU does in that sort of person-to-person way.
Okay, so our mission today, for you listening, is to get past that maybe slightly romantic idea of just a fun student year abroad. We want to really dig into the history, how it actually works, the nuts and bolts, and the cultural, even demographic impacts, which are, frankly, kind of startling.
Yeah, they really are.
Let's start with the name itself, Erasmus. It's quite clever, actually. It's got this double layer.
Right. So on one hand, it honors Desiderius Erasmus of Rotterdam, the Renaissance scholar, thinker.
The one who traveled everywhere in Europe back in the 15th, 16th centuries, studying, teaching.
Precisely. He really embodied that idea of a shared European intellectual life, moving across borders for knowledge. A perfect namesake.
But it's also an acronym.
It is, which is quite neat. It actually spells out the original very direct mission, European Community Action Scheme for the Mobility of University Students.
Ah, okay, so originally just focused on universities, students moving between them.
Exactly. That was the core idea right from the start, promoting that mobility, that cooperation across borders. The goal wasn't just sort of personal growth for the student, though that was part of
It
it.
was bigger than that.
Oh, yeah. It was about improving the quality of education itself, boosting innovation by getting different academic cultures to mix. The official launch was '87, but like you said, the idea had been percolating for a while.
Right, things like the joint study program in the 70s laid some groundwork.
They did, and you really have to mention the people who pushed for it.
Like Sofia Carati, the Italian educator.
Yeah.
I read she was pushing this idea way back in the 1960s. Incredible persistence.
Absolutely. Her vision was key. And then later on, you had student groups like AG, the European Students' Forum. They were really important politically.
They helped convince politicians.
Yeah, they played a big role in getting leaders like France's President Mitterrand on board in the mid-'80s. That political backing was crucial.
So it wasn't just a bureaucratic invention. It had real grassroots and academic support.
Definitely. And it didn't just sit still after launching. It evolved. It got folded into the Socrates program in '94, then the Lifelong Learning program in 2007. It kept getting integrated into bigger EU education frameworks.
Which shows the EU saw its value, right? They kept investing in it, expanding it.
Exactly. Which brings us to the current version, Erasmus plus E, that big restructuring in 2014.
That's when they pulled lots of different funding streams together, not just university students.
Right. Things like vocational training, school education projects, international uni cooperation Tempus, Leonardo da Vinci, Comenius, all those different names, they basically bundled them all under the Erasmus Plus banner, made it much more comprehensive.
And presumably much bigger budget-wise.
Oh, massively. The current funding cycle, 2021 to 2027, they proposed doubling the budget, aiming for around $30 billion.
30 billion, that's serious money. That signals it's way more than just an education program now.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It's a core EU policy tool. And you see that in the new priorities they've set for this cycle.
What sort of priorities?
Well, there's a big focus on greening the program. So thinking about environmental impact, climate change issues within the projects they fund, and also a huge digital push.
Ah, lessons learned from the pandemic, perhaps. Improving online learning.
Exactly. Making sure the digital education side is high quality. So yeah, it's adapting.
So how does it actually work? If you look at the structure, what does it fund?
Broadly, it's divided into three main key actions. Key action 1 is the one everyone knows best.
That's the classic student exchange. Go study abroad.
Right. Learning mobility of individuals, students going abroad, but also staff, trainees, teachers going overseas to teach or train. That's KA1.
Okay, so what are the other two? They sound more institutional.
They are. Key action 2 is about cooperation. funding joint projects between organizations, institutions, universities across borders. Think research partnerships, developing innovative teaching methods together.
So building connections at the organizational level, not just individual.
Precisely. And key action 3 is support to policy development. This is where the EU uses the program to try and harmonize education policies, share best practices, reform systems.
So it's got quite a political dimension, too.
Definitely. And they even explicitly include GandM actions under this umbrella. Those are specifically about funding, teaching, and research on European integration itself. Really underscores the political goal.
Okay, let's get practical. For someone thinking about doing it, a student, maybe a teacher, what are the rules? How long do you have to go for?
Well, they set minimum durations to ensure it's a meaningful experience. For students doing studies abroad, that's called SMS, studentability. For studies, it has to be at least 3 months.
3 months minimum.
And if you're doing an internship, a work placement, they call that SMP.
Yeah.
Student mobility of placement, the minimum is 2 months.
Right. And it's not just students hopping on a plane?
No, absolutely not. There's teacher mobility, STA. University staff can go teach abroad. Minimum stay is usually 2 days, but you have to deliver at least 8 hours of teaching.
And the absolute killer feature, the thing that makes it work logistically.
Ah, yes. The recognition. This is crucial. The time you spend abroad, the credits you earn, provided you meet the learning agreement you set up beforehand, are guaranteed to be recognized by your home university.
It takes away a huge barrier, doesn't it? Knowing your studies won't be wasted time in terms of your degree back home.
It's fundamental. Without that guarantee, the numbers wouldn't be anywhere near what they are. And that applies across all the participating countries.
Which is the 27 EU member states, plus some others.
Yeah, currently 6 non-EU associated countries are into. Places like Norway, Turkey, Iceland. Well, they're part of the system.
Now, you mentioned the scale earlier. Are there particular countries that really dominate the program?
Oh, definitely. Spain is the big one. Consistently.
In what way?
Both ways. Spain sends the most students out on Erasmus. We're talking over 40,000 a year. And it also receives the most incoming Erasmus students, upwards of 47,000 annually. It's the #1 destination by far.
Wow. The ultimate Erasmus hotspot. Any idea why Spain is so popular?
Well, a combination of factors probably. Climate, culture, cost of living in some cities might be lower. The university system is welcoming. It just seems to hit the sweet spot.
And how about the money side? Is it expensive?
Well, the good news for students is you don't pay tuition fees to the host university. You continue paying your normal fees, if any, at your home institution.
Okay, that's a big help.
And you could apply for an Erasmus grant. It's not usually massive. It's meant to help cover the additional costs of living abroad. Not the whole thing, but it definitely helps.
And finding accommodation, that must be a challenge.
It can be, yeah, especially with so many students moving around. But it's actually spawned its own little support ecosystem. Websites like CasaSwap or Flat Club specifically cater to Erasmus students looking for rooms or flatmates.
Right, adapting to the demand. Now, we have to touch on the UK situation. Brexit obviously changed things.
It did. Big change. The UK government decided not to continue participating in Erasmus, plus after Brexit, they set up their own national scheme instead, called the Turing Scheme.
So that cut the direct link for UK students going to Europe on Erasmus and European students coming to the UK.
Exactly. It was a significant shift, breaking decades of connection through the program. A lot of universities and students, both in the UK and Europe, felt that loss quite keenly.
But is that the end of the story?
Well, interestingly, maybe not entirely. Politics is fluid, right? There was that EU-UK summit in May 2025 where they apparently agreed to explore ways for the UK to potentially associate with Erasmus Plus again in the future.
Really? So even after leaving, there's talk of rejoining?
It seems so, which I think speaks volumes about the perceived value and, frankly, the soft power of the program. It's seen as so beneficial, so fundamentally useful for fostering connections, that even after a major political break like Brexit, the conversation about getting back in starts relatively quickly.
That really highlights its enduring appeal. Which brings us neatly to the whole Erasmus experience itself. It's more than just courses and credits, isn't it? It's become a cultural phenomenon.
Oh, absolutely. For many young people, it's often their first time living independently, maybe managing money in a different currency, navigating a completely new social environment. It's intense social learning.
A real journey of self-discovery alongside the academic stuff.
Totally. And that experience is now deeply woven into the fabric of modern European life.
Yeah.
You see its cultural footprint everywhere.
Like in films.
Yeah, the classic example is L'Auberge Espagnole, that 2002 film that just perfectly captured the slightly chaotic, exciting, multinational student flat share vibe.
I remember that. Lots of languages, lots of drama.
Exactly. But also in literature. Authors like David Mitchell or Sally Rooney have characters whose lives are profoundly shaped by their time on an exchange program. It's a common reference point.
And it's not just fiction reflecting it, right? It actually spawns things.
It does. Take Café Babel, that online magazine, multilingual, focused on European issues from a youth perspective, founded by former Erasmus students back in 2001.
Based on participatory journalism, translated into different languages. A real grassroots, cross-border community built from that shared experience.
A perfect example. It shows how those connections can lead to tangible, creative outputs.
So this all feeds into the idea of the Erasmus generation, doesn't it?
Precisely. That's the term academics and policymakers use. People like Stefan Wolf, a political scientist, speculated years ago that eventually Europe's leadership would be dominated by people who'd had this shared pan-European experience during their formative years.
Shaping their outlook, their networks.
Exactly. Making them perhaps more instinctively European in their thinking. The program is quite explicitly seen by the EU as a soft power tool, a way to build support and legitimacy for European integration from the ground up through personal experience.
And then there's the most talked about statistic, the one that always raises eyebrows.
Aw, you mean the Erasmus babies?
Yeah. I remember reading Umberto Eco, the philosopher, kind of bluntly called the program sexual integration.
Right.
And Sofia Karate, the pioneer, spoke about strengthening unity.
Well, Eco wasn't wrong, maybe just a bit crude. The European Commission itself put out an estimate, a quite staggering one.
What was the number?
They estimated that over 1 million children have been born to couples who met while one or both partners were participating in the Erasmus program.
1 million. Erasmus babies.
Right.
That just shifts the whole conversation, doesn't it? That's not education policy. That's demography. That's social engineering on a continental scale almost.
It is an astonishing claim, and it immediately makes you think.
How do they even calculate that? Is that a solid number, or is it, a bit of clever PR based on surveys?
It's definitely an estimate. It comes from large-scale surveys of Erasmus alumni asking about their life paths, including whether they met their long-term partner during their time abroad. So you can't point to a specific million babies and verify them individually. But the sheer volume of participants over 30-plus years and the consistent reporting in surveys about cross-national couples forming during or because of Erasmus makes the concept plausible. It might be an estimate, but it illustrates a powerful point. The bonds formed go way beyond casual friendships. They're life-changing, family-creating bonds.
Okay, so if it's creating these deep cross-border connections, potentially even families, what does that mean for identity? Does it actually make people feel more European? Or does it just attract people who already feel that way? That old question.
The preaching to the converted argument, yeah, that's been the central debate for ages.
Did early studies support that idea? That it was mainly wealthier, more internationally minded students going?
Some early research did suggest that, yeah, participants tended to have higher socioeconomic backgrounds or were already more open to international experiences, which led critics to say, see, it's not changing minds, just rewarding the already convinced.
But has that view held up?
Not entirely. More recent research using much bigger data sets and more sophisticated methods has really challenged that.
Like the Mitchell study you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Mitchell's 2015 research, for instance, looked at changes in identification before and after the Erasmus experience. And it found a significant positive link. Participation itself seemed to strengthen identification with Europe.
So the experience does make a difference. It's not just self-selection.
That's what the evidence increasingly suggests. It seems to genuinely foster tolerance, cross-cultural understanding, and yes, a stronger sense of European identity, even after accounting for prior attitudes.
Okay, that's a strong counter-argument, but we still need to be realistic about access, right? Inclusion is a stated goal now, but surely money is still a barrier.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That remains a challenge. The grants help, like we said, but they often don't cover the full cost, especially in more expensive cities. So socioeconomic background definitely still plays a role in who feels they can afford to go. It's not a perfectly level playing field.
And what about academic background? Does it favor the top students?
It's complicated, actually. The findings are a bit mixed, depending on the country and institution. In some places, like France or Italy, studies found that yes, higher grades were a strong predictor of who got selected.
Makes sense. Competitive spots, maybe.
But interestingly, in other places, like Spain, some research found that students with slightly lower academic performance were sometimes more likely to go.
Really? Why would that be?
Well, the theory is that maybe for those students, it was seen as a chance to gain valuable experience, maybe boost their CV, or perhaps study in a slightly less pressured environment for a while. So it's not a simple picture, which is precisely why the current Erasmus Plus program puts such a heavy emphasis on widening participation, diversity, and inclusion. They know these barriers exist.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what are the big takeaways for you listening to this deep dive? We've seen Erasmus is, well, incredibly resilient historically. It keeps adapting.
Yeah, and it's structurally really comprehensive now. Those key actions show it covers everything from the individual student hopping on a train to big institutional partnerships, right up to influencing EU policy.
And its impact.
Yeah.
It's just profound on individual lives, careers, relationships, and like we discussed, maybe even the demographic future of the continent. It's no wonder it won that big award, the Princess of Asturias Award, back in 2004.
Right. And its mission is clearly still evolving. That 2021-2027 focus on inclusion, greening, digital skills, and crucially, democracy and common values.
Yeah.
It shows the EU sees this as absolutely central to its own legitimacy, providing real, tangible benefits and experiences that bind people to the European idea.
It's inherently political, deeply personal, and socially transformative all at once.
Exactly. Which leads to maybe a final thought for you to ponder. We talked about those million Erasmus babies. If that number is even remotely close to reality, think about what happens when that generation grows up. A generation with deep, personal, cross-border family ties literally baked into their existence. How might that unique kind of continental connection, that shared heritage, fundamentally reshape the politics of society, the very identity of Europe when they come of age, start voting, leading, and shaping the future themselves?